hearing the Prophet's words, there's more barakah. So inshallah, I will reduce my explanation. And this was how, generally speaking, hadith classes were generally taught like this. The teacher would just read the hadith and just give small points. This was, it wasn't the practice of most teachers. Recently, in our traditional system, they had the habit, especially in Dars al-Nidami, to expound in detail. But a book like Imam Tirmidhi, rahmatullah alayhi, Jami', which is this thick, the whole Shah Waliullah's entire lecture could be comprised in, I think, about 24 pages for the entire book. So it was a very brief way of approaching, and then the latter approach of expounding in further detail. But khair, inshallah, we will go through some of these things, and I'll just say a few points, inshallah. So the chapter of dislike of qeel wa qal. Qeel wa qal is basically, you know how people say, he said, she said? You heard what that person said? Aapne suna kya ho raha? You know what this is? That qeel wa qal. The Prophet ﷺ disliked this. The hadith goes, Mughira radiallahu ta'ala anhu says, أنكتب إلي بحديث سمعته من رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم قال فكتب إليه المغيرة أني سمعته يقول. Mughira bin Shu'bah says, I remember that when the Prophet ﷺ would finish his salah, he would turn around from his salah, and the scholars write that the salah where there is no sunnahs after, the imam should turn completely, and the salah that there are sunnahs after, the imam should turn slightly, and the order you should turn in is counterclockwise, the same as the tawaf, as it's mentioned. The Prophet ﷺ would say, لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له له الملك وله الحمد وهو على كل شيء قدير. So this is one dhikr the Prophet ﷺ would always make after salah, and we should learn this. He would say this 3 times. وَكَانَ يَنْهَى عَنْ قِيلُ وَقَالِ. The Prophet ﷺ disliked and prohibited people from saying he said, she said. Someone says he said, if he said it, I'll hear it from him. Did you hear? No, I didn't hear and I don't want to hear. You know, my Ustad Maulana Sulaiman Choksi, very ajib mizaj. He, in everything, would direct your mind towards Allah. One time he's sitting down, and he narrated this incident one time of one of the scholars, that they came home to eat food at the dinner, and the dinner was prepared, and you know, customary before the dinner you have a conversation, you have a little discussion. So after the discussion was over, the sheikh got up and he said, Chalo bhai, let's go, dinner's over, we'll go. They said, Sheikh, you didn't eat anything. He said, were we not eating the flesh of so-and-so? Did we not just talk about this person? Did we not say this? We will always ask, is the food zabiha, but we'll never ask, is the conversation zabiha? Is the food halal? Yes. But is the conversation halal? We break our iftar on ghiba, on slander. About someone else, I don't want to hear it. Don't worry about other people's faults. Someone said this. You know how rumors go? People take a word, and then a rumor turns into you ever did that game? What is it called? Telephone? Say something, and it turns into a complete different story. You know, when we were in madrasa, one story goes into this jinn, and then that person turns into this thing, and then all of a sudden it becomes a supernatural element. We had one story where one person was a jinn sahabi. Story went from one story to one story to one story, then evolved into something totally new. So avoid what people say. The Prophet ﷺ said, وَكَثْرَةِ سُؤَالٍ, asking too many questions. The Prophet ﷺ disliked this. What's this? What's that? What's this? Why? Don't ask too many questions. Ask questions that are important. And sometimes we do this with our families. Kange, where'd you go? What time did you go? Who'd you meet? Who'd you talk to? Kathrat su'al. Goes for anybody. No one likes kathrat su'al. Wife, husband, relationships, everywhere. Kathrat su'al. Don't ask too much. لا تسأل عن أشياء تبد لكم تسؤكم. Don't ask things that if you know the answer, it will hurt you. Sometimes ignorance is a bliss. So don't pry too deeply at times as well. The next thing the Prophet ﷺ says is وَإِضَاعَةِ الْمَالِ. Allah dislikes wastage of money. إِضَاعَةِ الْمَالِ. Now, how many of you think that this is something you struggle with? إِضَاعَةِ الْمَالِ. Raise your hand if you think you struggle with إِضَاعَةِ الْمَالِ. Wasting money, throwing money away, and wasting money. Few people? I think almost everyone is. You know why? إِضَاعَةِ الْمَالِ. I go to the buffet, I go to eat food, all the stuff is left over. إضاعة المال. This is wastage of money. Drink water bottle, left the water, taught إضاعة المال. One time, Mufti Shafi rahimahullah went to his alma mater in Deoband. And one of his ustads was there, his teachers were there. So, you know, a student is always a student, regardless of where you go. The dinner finished, and Mufti Saab, he's a big sheikh, Mufti Shafi rahimahullah, Mufti Taqi Usmani's father. His teacher tells him, Maulana Asghar Hussain rahimahullah, I believe that was his name. Maulana Asghar Hussain says to him, he says, do you know the adab of cleaning the dastarkhan? Etiquettes. He said, pick it up and throw it. He said, no. He said, okay, you see all of these peels of the fruit? There's some goats in that alley over there. Go give it to them, they will eat it. He says, you see all of these bones right here? Pick it up. There's some dogs over there. Drop it over there, they'll eat it. He says, you see the fat that's on the lining and the skin that's tossed over here? Grab it, there's some cats over there, go feed it over there. He says, you see these breadcrumbs that are over here? Put it over there, there's some birds that come. My Ustad Maulana Sulaiman Choksi would tell us, in 30 years, 1 grain of rice was not wasted in his house. In 30 years, 1 grain of rice was not wasted in his house. And by wasted meaning, everything is composed or fed to a creation of Allah. You know, yesterday I was just on the phone with a friend of mine. And all of a sudden I said, wait, I have to kill an insect. So I whacked it a few times. Marra nahi tha banda, like, wasn't dying. MashaAllah, Mujahid. 4 or 5 whacks and Bibi Zinda. And I told my friend, I was like, wait for a second. He says, let me take care of this one. So he said, Wasim, he was talking to another friend. He said, I had a similar situation. And he told me that, you know, whenever you decide on killing an insect, instead of killing it, make niyat that, Ya Allah, I'm letting this insect go out. Our ustad used to grab the insect and leave it outside. Make niyat that, Ya Allah, whenever this insect does dhikr and remembers you, give me the reward for it. Like, where do their minds come? We see a tarantula and we say, let's find something to kill it with. This man sees it and sees an opportunity of Jannah through it. The same insect you and I see, we're like, how is the insects? Who left the food out? They're seeing an opportunity of earning reward through it. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give us all this mentality and understanding. وَمَنْعٍ وَهَاتٍ. And Allah dislikes when people, the things that you're supposed to give, you don't give. You're supposed to pay on time. You're supposed to, whatever you're supposed, the Prophet ﷺ said, وَأَعْتِ الْأَجِيرَ أُجْرَهُ قَبْلَ أَنْ يَجِفَّ عِرَقَهُ. Give a person their pay before their sweat dries up. Always pay on time, pay extra. Give your huquq. Wahat. Hat means give me. Don't ask people. Allah doesn't like this. And you know, this becomes a problem in wealthy homes. When the children become spoiled and everything becomes mommies and daddies. Teach them to also be responsible for themselves. This is the prophetic way, ghina, istighna. If you want to ask Allah, no one else, not even your parents. If you need to ask, then ask the one who can give. And if you're not going to ask, then don't ask anybody. That's the formula. And the Sahaba, you know, one Sahabi asked the Prophet ﷺ a few times. The Prophet gave, and finally the Prophet ﷺ said, you know, it's not good that you ask. And the giver is better than the taker. That Sahabi took those words so much to heart. You know when they're on a horse and they have a whip, and the whip would drop? Usually people say, he can just give that to me. He would mount off the horse, pick it up, and get back up, because the Prophet ﷺ told me, never ask anyone for anything, so I will never ask anyone for a favor. This was their mind. Anyway, وَعُقُوقِ الْأُمَّهَاتِ. The Prophet ﷺ disliked the disobedience of parents. وَوَأْتِ الْبَنَاتِ. And the bearing of children. Babu Hifdh al-Lisan, the chapter of protecting the tongue. The Prophet ﷺ says, مَنْ يَضْمَنْ لِي مَا بَيْنَ لِحْيَيْهِ وَمَا بَيْنَ رِجْلَيْهِ أَضْمَنْ لَهُ الْجَنَّةِ. Whoever guards whatever is between their 2 jawbones and their 2 legs, then I will guarantee for them Jannah. Whoever can guarantee that they can protect this flesh and the flesh between their legs, then I can guarantee Jannah. In another hadith, the Prophet ﷺ said, مَنْ كَانَ يُؤْمِنُ بِاللَّهِ وَالْيَوْمِ الْآخِرِ. Whoever believes in Allah in the final day, فَلْيَقُلْ خَيْرًا. Speak good, أَوْ لِيَصْمُتْ. Or stay silent. وَمَنْ كَانَ يُؤْمِنُ بِاللَّهِ وَالْيَوْمِ الْآخِرِ. Whoever believes in Allah in the final day, فَلَا يُؤْذِي جَارَهُ. Don't hurt your neighbor. وَمَنْ كَانَ يُؤْمِنُ بِاللَّهِ وَالْيَوْمِ الْآخِرِ. Whoever believes in Allah in the last day, فَلْيُكْرِمْ ضَيْفَهُ. Take care of your guest. In another hadith, the Prophet ﷺ says, Abu Shurih al-Khaza'i radiyallahu anhu says, سَمِعَ أُذَنَايَ. My 2 ears have heard, وَوَعَاهُ قَلْبِي. And my heart has absorbed this from the Prophet ﷺ. The Prophet ﷺ said, الضِّيَافَةُ ثَلَاثَةُ أَيَّامٍ. That hospitality is 3 days. جَائِزَتُهُ. And a reward, elite service. قِيلَ وَمَا جَائِزَتُهُ. Ya Rasulullah, what do you mean by elite service? The Prophet ﷺ said, the first day someone is your guest. That day, the sunnah is to go out of the first meal. To go out of your means. Make something extra. The rest of the days, the sunnah is not to go out of your means. Because what this does is it creates a burden on the family. So the first meal, you go out of your way, the rest 3 days, and you should not be a guest at someone's home for more than 3 days. These are adab and etiquettes. They're your family, relatives, doesn't matter. They told us to stay. I understand that. But this is adab. You never know what's going on in their home. 3 days is the sunnah. And then after that, make your own arrangements. There are some scenarios you're going to your brothers and back at home or sisters, or those other scenarios. But if you're constantly visiting somewhere, try to get your own place. The adab of dhiyafa. This is from Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. The second thing is that have a habit of bringing guests at home. There is an insurmountable, a measurable amount of barakah when you have guests that come inside the house. And they eat, they do dua, they pray. You don't know which person was just a wali of Allah that entered your home. And who did dua and what. And now things are going well in your home because some righteous person came. Now we don't know. This righteous is not measured with this. It's not badi topi, badi dari, and you're pious. No. That Allah knows. That's why sometimes make it a habit. Grab anyone, let's go for chai at my house. We don't have this habit in our country. In South Africa and in our countries, the habit was after Asr or Maghrib or Isha, Jummah guaranteed people are always taking someone for lunch. After Asr, Maghrib, Isha, these winter days, the salahs are coming earlier, make it a habit. Take someone randomly every day, bring them home. It causes some sukoon at home. Because obviously there's guests at home, the environment of the house has to also kind of mellow down a little bit. You have a guest at home. And then it brings its own host of barakah. It creates muhabba and relationship in the community. Our community is growing too big and too fast. It's great to see this many people in the masjid. But if we are so many, but the hearts are disconnected, then we really didn't accomplish much than just pray salah together. But if we truly want to grow, then our hearts have to be connected. I have to know this brother over here just as well as I know my own biological brother. And I have to know everyone's name, and this starts first and foremost for myself and every single person. Try to be as friendly as you can. Try to connect with people. Get out of your comfort zone. The elderly should talk to the youngster, the young to the old, Bengalis to the Arabs to the Desis, to the non-Desis. Doesn't matter what culture. Learn to talk, say salam, communicate, have this relationship. We are an ummah for a reason. It is such a barakah to be able to be around so many people of different backgrounds. Let's bring our hearts together. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala put barakah in what has been said. Whatever is right is from Allah. Whatever is wrong is from myself and shaitan. May Allah forgive us. Subhanakallah wa bihamdika wa nashhadu an la ilaha illa anta nastaghfiruka wa natubu ilayk.